Hello and welcome back to not another bodybuilding podcast, where we are going to try our best to just not be another bodybuilding podcast. So I've got a very exciting guest on. I wish I could say that we weren't sat here speaking for a good 10 minutes before we started recording. This is in fact one half of my amazing coaching team at Pro Prep Coaching, Miss Steff Noble _figure pro. And so I'll let Steff introduce herself a wee bit. The first thing we're going to start off in the conversation is how you got into this weird and wonderful industry of bodybuilding and fitness. So,
Okie dokie. Well, good to see you, Rob, and thanks for the fun little introduction. I have to say I am a big fan of this podcast already, and that's not just because we know each other and you're a client. I like the concept and I love the name, and been a couple of very cool guests on lately. So thank you for having me on. And so where to begin? I think I ask myself that question on a day-to-day basis. Like, how did I fall into bodybuilding? And I suppose from a female perspective, it's quite a contradiction, because sometimes I wake up and I want to be like this really pretty, lovely, like blonde, like slim thing that can put the little summer dress on. I've been thinking about this the last couple of days. And then I go to put my summer dress on, the one that's been in my cupboard for like, I don't know, the last few years, and oh shit, I can't wear it because I'm too big. Sorry,
I have the same issue.
You have to say it too, yeah. So I think the contradiction is there. You've got like the female who sometimes doesn't want to be a bodybuilder, and then you've got the female who wants to be a bodybuilder all the time. And when I think like that, I ask myself that question, like, how did I fall into this crazy sport? And why do I love it so much? And it's so against the norm for so many females, I guess, in mainstream, if you want to call it that. But I think my story is I've always been extremely competitive. I come from a sporting background. So I've been a dancer for as long as I can remember, went into professional dance before getting my personal training degree, etc. And that was way back 2000s, in the 2000s. I went to college, we went to university, studied performance and performing arts and business there. Found my passion for health and fitness whilst I was there, because it was a follow-on from my vocational education, my dancing background. And I needed something else to be competitive. I needed to keep pushing my body and challenging it in different ways. And that's where my journey began, within the gym. And then the gym itself became like a sanctuary for me, because I came away from professional dance, but I still needed to focus my physicality on something. And the gym was a place where I could do that. And then I started looking around at different people in the gym. I was in a bodybuilding gym at the time, and I've done a couple of podcasts where I've explained this. I've got one on my own YouTube as well, where I talk about my journey. But there used to be like pictures on the wall of my gym of different muscular females. And at the time, it was Louise Rogers, who was the first IFBB figure pro in the UK. Mm-hmm. And she's now Louise Kayim. She's still on the gram and everything else. She's great. But her physique at that time was exactly what I aspired to. And she was only at the beginning of her journey in that world, in the IFBB world. And I just looked up at that picture one day in the gym and thought, I want that. I want to look like that. And that's where it all began.
Are you very driven by that kind of, that visual of seeing something every time you were in the gym? It was that almost like every time you went in and wondered why you were there, you could look up and see that photo. It's a good way of that motivation.
Yeah, it really is. I think as well, like, I've always, coming back to sort of my roots, I always like strive to be as good at something as I possibly can be. So before being in the gym and aspiring to be that look, I was shooting for a body fat target, to get to a certain body fat to go on a holiday to Brazil to see my best mate who lived in Rio de Janeiro at the time. Mm-hmm. And that was like my first sort of proper I suppose, physique transformation target, because before that it was always like strength and conditioning based on my dance and stuff like that. And so, yeah, there is that element of like chasing the thing, and what does that look like, or what does that feel like, or what's the goal? That's been why I've been so interested in following through with this. And then it just took off, and then it took over everything.
Yeah.
And
Whereabout were you at this point? Where, I know you've kind of been all over the place. Where were you where you first started?
Yeah, okay, so I started I suppose if we just focus on the bodybuilding, in 2008, it would have been, that the training side of things. And that was when I was living down in Leeds. When I was living down, I was actually in Yorkshire at the time. And I was in a Yorkshire gym. I was actually in like this little kind of spit and sawdust gym in the middle of it was like in the middle of an estate out in the sticks in Yorkshire. And yeah, that's where it all began.
Yeah, a dungeon, as they'd probably call it. A dungeon
Yeah, well,
gym.
it was kind of like that. It was a really random place. Like it was like one of those kind of gyms that, it has its owner, it has its owner's pal, and they have a resident dog. And like you go in there, and there's only about 10 people that are in the gym that know everyone, and there's always like that short little bald guy who's like, come on, everyone's gonna like just absolutely go mental. It was just such a weird, bizarre, I'll never forget it. It was like there was this guy that was permanently in there every time you went in. His name was Dennis. He sat in a chair. He was not remotely what you would class as somebody who looked like they'd even stepped in a gym in his life. He was just like this guy that's permanently in this gym, because that was his life. Like he had nothing else other than that place. And it was great because he was part of it, and he used to come in, he used to give you like a little espresso coffee, and he'd tell you like, go on, get yourself in there. And I don't think I ever saw him on one piece of equipment in my whole time I was ever there.
He was just like the Mr. Motivator that never done anything.
Yeah, he totally was. But he had all these stories, and he'd tell you all these crazy stories. And when I think back to it now, I just think, what a bizarre place. But it was good. It was good. It was good for my mindset. It was good for my enjoyment of learning about the sport to begin with. And yeah, it was what I needed at the time.
And the thing is, with that environment, you never know if you were in a, I'm not saying that these gyms aren't real gyms, but if you were in like a commercial gym, it might have sculpted you another way. It probably was because of that gym with them pictures on the wall that you started to go down that route. And I think that's just shows you how much environment can influence you. Would you say that kind of would have been the thing? If you didn't go into that gym, do you think you would have been where you are now in terms of your physique and your pro status and likewise things like that?
I've never really thought about that question, but actually, would I've gone into this realm of bodybuilding without that type of environment as a female? Probably not. I probably would have still done a fitness goal, but it might not have been bodybuilding.
Yeah.
It was really a product of that environment. I agree with that sort of thought when I think about it. Everything was a steel weight. There was no fancy machines. There was no cables. There was nothing of that. It was just what they've picked up over the years from secondhand gyms, and it's all compacted together in a big mix mash of stuff. And yeah, there was definitely a feeling of like, that was a bodybuilding gym. That was it. And like, that's what lit the fire, I guess. Like, had I been in, say, a Pure Gym or the gym or one of these other gyms, I might have been more of the kind of the fitness bunny, because before that I was a real cardio junkie. I was the one that was running the treadmill for hours, like trying to get really lean for my Brazil trip. And then I moved out to the sticks in Yorkshire and started at this gym, and that was it. So yes, definitely, it probably made a massive influence to where I am now.
So you said that your first goal was, like most people, to get in shape for a holiday. So how does that track go from there to stepping on stage for the first time?
Right, okay, so I hit my target, and I was really lean. I look back on those photos now, and I was just like, a wee bit of muscle, but quite just this tiny little shell of a person. I came back from that holiday, and in that same gym, I met a couple of people. I met a guy who was like, have you looked at me, of course, and was like, have you considered competing? And that was the catalyst. That was it. It was the question, have you considered competing? I went, what's that? And then my research brain just went off. Like, I was on every forum, on every, you know, website, looking at what competing was. How did Louise on the wall get to look like that? And then that was it. That was my goal, to start preparing for a competition. And at the time, there was quite a big, still is, but there's quite a massive scene in Yorkshire for bodybuilding. I mean, you look at it across, I've got the thing on right here, the Ultraflex gyms, they're everywhere in Yorkshire. You know, there's a real culture for it. There's a lot of places you can go. There's some top level bodybuilders down there. And I went into Leeds. I met a couple of different bodybuilders. I was working alongside a group at the time with what it was said coach. I'm not actually going to go into too many names and stuff because I don't agree with his. I stepped away from that. I'll explain that in a moment. But I started working with a team of kind of girls, and the team was sort of called Body and Design, and we would on a weekend, we'd work out together, we'd maybe do a bit of posing, and that's kind of where it all started. And I started meeting other girls, I started understanding a bit more about it, and fire lit off I went to now start my journey to the first show. And I was very lucky, and I've said this on other podcasts before, but I was very lucky that I was surrounded by people in a bodybuilding gym that understood the natural world. So I was encouraged to do a natural show as my first show.
And it was the NPA, wasn't it? You posted about that a few weeks ago.
A couple of weeks ago, it popped up on my memories. NPA Yorkshire in 2013 was my first show.
See, that's actually what I think about when I hear Yorkshire, is the NPA Yorkshire, because you don't get a lot of places that it's like the show versus exactly where it is. It's usually like northern, southern, but that one always seems to stick in my head as NPA Yorkshire. So that's home turf. That's where they're at. You know, the NPA with Mike Phillips, he does his thing there, and that's their home turf. So that show was like down the road from me, and I was just like, this is ace. I can do all this work and then roll down the road to my first show, and it'll just be a fun day out. That's all I really thought about it. I didn't really think at the time, where's this going to go? I just thought, this is my next challenge, the NPA Yorkshire. Let's go. And how did you get on in that show? Remind me.
So I took first place in mistrained figure class, and I took best posing and presentation for my first show. And so I was like a total rabbit caught in the headlights at that, because my whole experience of that show was really old school. Like, I had the dream tan slapped all over me. I was like the biggest and the leanest I've ever been. I've always been relatively, what's the word? Responsive, I'd say, to training. So in any element, that is. So I really saw my body in a different way to how it had been before. I'd seen my body lean, but I hadn't seen my body lean with muscle. So it was a real nice experience for me to see my body in a different way and to do what I love. So this is where things kind of married up for me. So my passion for performance, for movement, for aesthetic, for art, that type of thing, the creative element, and then the physical element of the hard work and the commitment spliced together was like a light bulb. It was like, for me, those two things together, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to help people do, because it was bringing two elements of my life I had such huge passion for, and then me wanting to really fully educate myself on the nitty gritty and the actual nutrition and the training side of things from a different point of view. I had already done all the anatomy and physiology for my dance, but from actual bodybuilding point of view, that's where it all began.
Nice. So you've done podcasts before. We're not going to go through this whole journey of every single show that you've done. So for people that don't know, and you've probably told the story of a million times, but So people that don't know, you are a pro in two different federations. It is the WNBF Fit Body Pro, and a DFAC Figure Pro. See, I do my research.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I'm glad you're aware of what accolades I have. If I can call them accolades, my God, I am. Yeah, I'm very, very humbled to hold those two titles. Yeah.
So you're my first pro on the podcast, so that's awesome. So when did you turn? It was obviously the DFAC Pro first. Yeah. What year was that?
So that was in 2017. So in 2017, I took the British figure champion on the WNBF stage here and was awarded my pro card at that British finals. And then went over to do my first pro show in the US with the DFAC at Miami in 2017, and I took second place in my first pro show.
That's awesome. So, and that was so that was 2017, and you obviously took 2018 off completely, and then it brings us to 2019, last year. So that's what I want to really focus on a lot of this podcast, because in my eyes, you had a great season. But it looks like you had an exciting season because you got on new stages. You got on some amazing, prestigious stages. So run me through, when was it did you always plan on competing in 2019? Was it always the plan to take 2018 off, or was that just kind of what you felt you needed?
Yeah, so there's a wee bit of a backstory to it, really. 2018 was taken off not because of wanting to have an off season. 2018 was taken off because I needed the year off. I had been through a couple of really very big life changes in 2017 that kind of stopped me in my tracks, if I'm honest. It just I just had a real shutdown from everything. And I needed a lot of time to recover from those things. And when 2018 came along, and me and Andrew, Andrew and I really started kind of getting together, my confidence, I guess, came back, or at least started to come back. And I was able to launch my head back into proper training and nutrition, because the end of 17, beginning of 18 for me I wasn't a bodybuilder at that point. Like, I was not training. I wasn't really, I was tickling it. I was kind of keeping myself above water, but I was really mentally struggling with quite a few big traumas I was going through. So 18 was a case of getting back on my feet, finding my ability to focus my energies into something I love again, because I'd kind of just lost myself quite a bit. And then when I got back into the gym, it was like I always talk about this, but it really was it's a bit cheesy, but it really was a bit of a savior. That, and combined with Andrew and him being a massively positive influence on my life, just brought it all back into perspective for me. And I was determined then not to give up on something that I absolutely adore doing. And that's then when I decided at sort of the end of 2018, when me and Andrew were discussing, like, what should we do next year? And that was when I decided, right, I want to compete. I don't know when it's going to be, and I'm not making any decision on a show. I do want to compete again, but I'll only do it when I feel confident enough in myself to do it. I'll start a prep. I'll keep going with a prep, but I don't know what that end outcome looks like. Yeah. I knew I didn't want to do the DFAC. I knew that because I'd had couple of issues with things there. I knew I was open to new ideas and open to new options, but I didn't want to commit to anything. So that's kind of the backstory. So then 2019 comes along, and the first thing Andrew and I kind of discussed was, why don't we do a guest spot? Like, the guest spot, again, coming back to my passion for the posing, his passion for the posing. I mean, Andrew is just an expert poser. He exudes that incredible like presence on stage, and I love that too, and I do that too. And we just thought this would be epic if we could do this together, and that's really what started the fire that year.
The best thing about a guest spot as well is you get longer than that 60 seconds. The amount of times when I've been practicing my posing and you realize that you've just posed to a whole song that's 3.5 minutes long, and you've then got to find 60 seconds of that. I think that's what would be the most exciting thing about a guest spot, is having that freedom to do like a full-on routine.
Yeah, and we started it. We were in the studio. Like, I won't actually say the song, because maybe one day we'll do it, because we came up with a really amazing routine. And we were in the studio like 3 minutes into a tune, still wanting to go and go and go. And we've got loads of video footage from that time, like us putting together different things and stuff. So maybe one day we'll bust it out.
Yeah,
I'd like to do that.
You should get it. You should get it like professionally filmed. Get like a music video style on the go. I think that would be awesome.
That would be wicked. I'm stealing that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Find some cool locations around the Granite City and
Yeah,
get it done.
It's really funny you say that, because like I find like a couple of spots up here that I love, where the light flex, reflects on different parts of the granite, and that with bodybuilding poses or like a nice routine would just be epic. Like I was looking at some of Lee Labrada's poses yesterday, and like he does so many of them outside, and the presence against just like environments that are contradicting to the body, it just looks amazing. That's what I love about it.
The thing is, it's unique as well. There's no point doing what everyone else does. Like, what's the point of staying on that status quo? You want to do your own thing, and that's, I think, the beauty of it. When you've got such a talent and passion for posing, why would you want to do it in a studio? Why not try and go that extra mile?
Go find really cool places to do it. Yeah, somebody said to me the other day, we were around at friends, and he said something like, "Oh, you and Andy, you two are just, you're your own thing." And I was like, "Well, what's that mean to me?" And he was like, "Well," I said, "if you could describe what I'm like or what he's like, how would you describe it?" And he said, "Well, put it this way, you're more like the shepherd than the sheep. You don't follow the crowd. You've got your own set of rules." And I thought that was just such a perfect description of kind of how I see life. Like, you just want to enjoy things that light you up, don't you? Rather than kind of focusing on what other people are doing around, I guess. So
yeah, absolutely. So we'll go back to 2019. So what, I can't even remember. I didn't do that much research. Sorry, Steff. What was the first time in 2019? So when did you go on stage? What was the first show?
The first one for me was the UK DFBA British Finals. So the
I thought so. Yeah.
The open show. Yeah, and so I was to explain to you how nervous I was about that. I can't describe to you, because as I was explaining to you before, I had so much going on over the last couple of years, and mentally I was going for this and going for this and going for this and going for this, and knowing that my body was coming into the best shape I could. But if I'm honest, my prep was also a way of me managing a lot of things I was still recovering from. So when I finally got to that point to jump on the stage at the UK DFBA, I had a real kind of it was a bit of a panic, I guess. Like, oh my gosh, what if I'm not good enough? Like, what if I'm going to fall completely flat on my face here? I've been a figure pro in another federation. I've not been on stage for a couple of years. I won, obviously, the British finals in another fed 2 years ago. What if I've not had enough progression? And all these things were flying through my head, along with like still feeling quite beat up with a few mental things going on. And I was absolutely bricking it, if I'm honest. So that was the first one. So I jumped on the stage there, and I absolutely loved every minute of it. But it was extremely emotional. It was a very emotional day for me that day. I think I must have cried about 1,500 times that day. It was hard. It was a hard day, but a very, very, very good day, of course. Because the outcome was magic. It was
what you're saying, it sounds like it was rewarding in more ways than just the trophies.
Oh yeah, that whole day wasn't about the trophy for me at all. It was just about being able to get up there and do what I love and I'm proud about, and in the face of a lot of extreme challenges, I didn't think I was going to be able to do that again. So for me, like, I'm getting emotional now thinking about it, but for me, that was a real, like, a kind of a milestone for me.
And
Good one.
and that was just kind of you getting back into it, and that was did it relight the fire?
It did, yes. It did, in the sense that I believed I could do this again. So for me, that fire, it not in the sense of, oh, hardcore, I'm gonna go whatever. For me, it was a case of, stop second guessing yourself and remind yourself what you're capable of. And the win isn't important to me. The belief that I can do this and then inspire others too is what kind of drives me. That's my force. So in that sense, yes, 100%. And then I guess when I came off the UK DFBA stage, I had it was almost like the door had opened again, so I could go and compete and I'd be okay. I wasn't gonna fail miserably. And I think that's where we come in, like bodybuilders, and a lot of bodybuilders I know, and I'm quite a gregarious person, but I'm extremely critical of myself. And so for me, all the hardship I kind of placed and the kind of pressure I put on myself for that was like relief. So I felt like I could then go on to do the future shows that year.
Yeah. And it's great to hear. Well, it's not great to hear, but it's good to hear that you had them emotions going through it, because it almost takes you back to that first time competing days, and it just shows you that it's never easy for everyone. Some people might get on that stage and feel at home, but some people might still be thinking, and if people are thinking they're not good enough, then it's almost finding that inner confidence that know it's about the journey, it's not about the results. That's kind of, I know that's a bit cliche as well, but that journey of you at the start of prep versus that end goal, you can't beat it. You can't beat that accomplished feeling inside.
Totally. I think anybody who bodybuilds does go through their own personal journey, regardless of kind of the external circumstances that are going on around them. But I think when you're attaching something else to it to help you get through something, it almost becomes like an entire what's the kind of word, like, it's like invigorating you to get through kind of other stuff that's going on. So for me, that was what my 2019 was.
I'm going to pause this. That's someone at the door. Okay, sorry about the interruption there. Had an Amazon delivery, but it's worth it. It's worth it for what it is. So we've done the UK DFBA show. We have won your class. We have achieved a Fit Body Pro card from that show. And did you expect that? Was it? I know it's hard to say, oh yeah, I expected it, but I've not seen that done in a long time, for them to give out, what was it, three pro cards throughout the show. And it's not like they said that they were giving out. It's good to see that federation rewards what's in front of them. They don't say we're giving out a pro card or we're giving out 2 pro cards. It's, yes, you deserve a pro card, and that's why you're getting a pro card. That's what I like about it.
I agree with that. A part of me before going into the show, of course, was like, oh, this is really hard, like, because I've been awarded that pro status in another extraordinarily difficult state of affairs to get a DFAC pro card. That's I was trying for like 5 years to get that bad boy.
Maybe we should actually quickly say that anyone that doesn't already know this story, that Steff had to go back into the amateur ranks in the new federation of the UK DFBA, just in case anyone hasn't already heard that story. So she was a pro in another federation, just for anyone that isn't clued up on it. So she was a pro in a federation, in another world federation. So she was now entering a new world federation, the WNBF. Is that right? Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah. So it's, you know, I'm still really respect Lee for that, because, you know, Andrew and I called Lee and said, Lee, we're pros in another fed, can we come and just go straight into the pro ranks? And of course he was like, you know, we've got a set of rules here, guys, the same rules apply to all. You have to come and qualify, you know, and do the British finals, and you have to earn that right to then be awarded pro status. And it was like, I think I've said this before, but it was hard to swallow, because at the end of the day, you've got to just swallow your pride. You're not a pro in that fed. You can't be a pro in that fed unless you do your due diligence and you earn your pro status in that fed. And so fair dues. And, you know, I came away from that and I thought, well, I have to set an example to myself here as well. Like, you know, I shouldn't expect that. I'm just a bodybuilder at the end of the day, and if I decide to switch into another federation, I have to apply their rules to me. So for me, it was a case of, okay, cool, right, let's do it. And of course the pressure was on, because then you're like, I've got to perform here. Yeah. On top of my mindset at the time, which was really hard, I was like, oh my God, what am I doing to myself? Not only have I like just come through this crazy period in my life, I'm now putting myself in one of the most pressurizing positions to either succeed or fail. And so for me, it was tough. But did I expect or believe I was going to get pro status? I believe within myself that I'm capable of it, because I've done it before. And because I know my physique. And when you get to this level and you see your physique, and when I took my win on the BNBF stage and I took my pro status there, and when I went and competed in the pro ranks in America, I finally accepted that my physique was worthy of being on a professional stage. So, well, not accepted, I finally saw that. I believed that. I sort of thought, right, my physique is developed enough now to stand in a pro lineup. So I went into the UK DFBA show with an element of belief of that. So I was doing everything in my power to make sure I was lean, conditioned, muscular, hard, and a wow factor physique, so that I couldn't be denied that. That was where I was going in with it. So
can I just say, as a natural bodybuilding fan, see, when I seen that on your two Instagrams that you were going to do the UK DFBA show, I was honestly like, it was exciting. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that will think this, especially, I think I seen it on, because I knew Andrew had been competing throughout the season. And then when I seen that he was doing it, then I went and clicked onto your profile and I seen that you were going as well. I was honestly like, I was a bit buzzing. I was like, this is insane. I was like, at first I was thinking, oh my God, how, at first I was like, what you said, oh my God, how's the other federation going to take this? And then I didn't know what they were doing. And then when I heard that you were in the amateur show, I was like, oh my God, this is really exciting. And then I wasn't actually at that show, but I was following the results.
It was really funny, because when we walked in, people were like, are you guys competing? And it was such a surreal day, because I think both of us were just a bit like running on adrenaline, because this was a massive decision to do this, you know, for us anyway. And I mean, I know it doesn't really matter, but in the grand scheme of bodybuilding, we're such a small sport, aren't we? So when pros move into doing different things, it's like quite exciting. It's different, isn't it? So yeah, we had people like quite like, what the fuck are you guys doing here? And it was great.
It was cool. It was cool to see, and it did have a wee bit, like I said, it was exciting, and it's a case of we don't see it all the time. We know who's gonna compete. So when there's a bit of a spanner in the works, it's what the sport needs. It needs a bit of drama, if you want to call it that.
A bit of good drama, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
good drama, yeah.
Good drama, yeah. But that's the thing, like, the thing is I love bodybuilding. Andrew loves bodybuilding. And you can get entrenched in the minutiae of who competes where and why they compete and da-da-da-da-da. At the end of the day, like, when I did DFAC, I had nowhere else to compete apart from Miami. I have no other natural show in the UK to do. So for me, it was a natural thing to do. Because unless, BNBF had a pro figure lineup in the UK, I can't do anything. So for me, it was like, this is a no-brainer. This is an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah.
For Andrew, it was a chance for him to get up on stage with other professional guys, and start to actually test his physique in other places as well. And who doesn't want to try and get a pro card with the WNBF? It's the World Natural Bodybuilding Federation. When I went to that show this last year with Andrew and with the rest of the UK DFBA team, I can't describe to you the difference in the buzz and the electricity about a show that size for a natural organised. I've never been to such a big natural show.
Yeah, and it was truly a world final. That's one thing I want to, like, I have mutual respect for all the federations, but that was like a world final. There was people from all over the globe there, and there were some stacked lineups and some tough lineups.
Oh my gosh. And do you know what was great about it? When you get to the venue, or when you're coming to the venue, it's like, and I saw this I'll move into NABA in a moment. I saw this at NABA, but I've seen this at some other like non-tested shows in other places. But the teams come with their full team outfits on, with their jackets on, with their like flipping mascots and like everything else. And there's a sense of like sport in it. Not just bodybuilding, there's a sense of actual sport. And that's what I loved about it, it was like watching an Olympics of bodybuilding, if you like. People coming from all different, you had the Italians, you had the Germans, you had the Japanese, you had the British, you had all these teams. And it was cool. There was a real sense of international celebration of bodybuilding. That's what I liked about it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can't take away from the standards as well. Like, the standards were ridiculous.
Standards were insane. So you didn't compete at Worlds, but you did go over and support. Yeah,
I went over as like part of the team. I was helping with people's posing, with people's makeup, with people's like the actual general helping with the stage stuff and supporting the guys. And of course, I could not be there. I couldn't leave Andrew to go on his own, and I had to be there to watch him do that because it meant so much to him. For me,
and New York.
And New York. And then we went off and had like an absolutely amazing week after that, and it was a great celebration for us two together. It was like the end of just the most insane, turbulent, emotional roller coaster that year. So good in a good way. Yeah. For me, I couldn't do that show. I was done by the NABA. We'll finish my NABA. I'll explain that in a sec. But my body was ready. I was happy. I was content. I didn't need to go and then try and prove my first year in WNBF. I was happy. I was ready to just go, now I've had a great year. Emotionally, I was tired, really tired. And I was ready to just go, no, there's time. You don't need to rush this. You can come back to that when you're ready. So
how long was your prep altogether?
Oh my God. Okay, so I literally started in February and I didn't finish till the November, and I continued prepping right up till we went to New York with Andrew. So I came off the UK DFBA stage and went straight back on diet, and I went to the gym with him every day, was doing cardio with him every day, because when we started together, we finished together. So overall, that was like 38 to 40 weeks, something ridiculous like. Yeah,
and is that kind of, just quickly, is that kind of your approach to it normally, a longer prep?
My preps are usually somewhere between 30 and 32 weeks, usually. Now, they weren't before, now they are, because of the conditioning I want to try and achieve. And I know my body so well, naturally, it just takes that time for me to get to that level. So yeah, it's roughly around 30 to 32 weeks.
Yeah. And that, I think that's now coming to people are now realizing that's what it takes. There's no more, I think everyone, when they first start off, they see the Olympia people, the untested guys, they do 12-week preps, and then and then it's not that reality. It's the reality of double that at least.
I wish. Yeah, that's the difference right there. And people always say like, oh, you can't be natural, you can't get into that shape naturally. You can. You just have to sacrifice a hell of a lot longer to get there. Mm-hmm. And you have to be ridiculously diligent with your training and your nutrition. You can't get away with anything. You have to just be on it.
Let's touch on that then. So you did do the universe as well, and that is an untested show in so how did that come about? I think I know the story, but I think it's a great story how you actually got asked, and how and while you speak about that, the untested federations, your physique is wicked. It's insane. And that is, I think that's why you did do what you done this season, by stepping on an amateur stage, and you were very ahead in my eyes. And this is just my opinion. I'm not a judge. I'm not been in natural bodybuilding for ages and ages, but you looked insane on that lineup. No disrespect to anyone else that was on that stage, but I could see that you were in that league above. And I think you getting that pro card was well deserved, and it was needed for you. I don't think, see, if they didn't awarded you that pro card, I think you wouldn't have been testing yourself enough next time you compete. And I think that next time you compete in that WNBF fit body lineup, I think that will be something for you. That will be a great challenge for you in terms of your physique matching other people. And it's going to be. And how do you feel about that next time? Well, you've seen it in person, that pro class that you'd be going into, and honestly, what did you feel like when you seen them? And then we'll touch on that.
Honestly, I thought, bring it on.
Good.
Because for me, that's why I do it. I love the competition. I love it. Absolutely love it. I saw those girls up there, and I've been following them as well. Like I know what some of these girls are. I follow them all because I love watching top tier bodybuilding. That's what when I put my training program together, and when I talk about my progression, I'm not focusing on what is an interesting kind of like training program that's niche now and it might get. I'm looking at these top level girls at the IFBB level. I am watching all of their types of different sorts of training, and I've applied that to myself. But I've also been really grateful to have good people around me who have pushed me really hard to grow. I don't need people to kind of push me in the direction of discipline and focus, but that's where my head's at. That's what I do in every area of my life, and has been at my detriment as well, by the way. So it's like my strongest thing and my worst thing is my drive and my determination with kind of what I perceive I'm capable of. But when I looked at that pro lineup at WNBF, I thought, I mean, of course I did the stereotypical thing. I thought, why the fuck am I not up on that stage? Why am I not up there? I should be up there. And I'm sitting in that seat like, oh, I've got a bigger back than that. I can do this. I can do that, like this. And I was so desperate to be on that stage. But then I thought, no, I know why I took a step back. So that's exciting, thinking about the potential of being up against these girls. Of course, I've had that opportunity at the DFAC when I was, and I'll remember, and I'm going to give her a shout out because we still speak to this day, and I really have a lot of respect for this girl. But Stephanie Kane, who was the American girl who took the first place in that show, it was the two Steffs. We call ourselves the two Steffs now. We chat away on Instagram. But she beat me just on that day, and she fueled me to keep pushing and pushing, because she had things I didn't have, but I had things she didn't have, and it was so flipping close. It was so close, and I just thought, right, I know what I need to do if I want to be right there. So I'll just keep plodding away and see if I can get there.
Yeah, nice. And I think it's good to see. I like to hear that people have that that confidence. And I thought, I don't see how you could be pretty much still in decent shape at that time, because you said that you were still dieting till the end, and just you were fully just wanting to hop on that stage. You should have just had tan underneath just in case.
No, it's funny, Rob, though. I woke up in the morning and Andrew was like, how am I looking? And I was like, you're like shredded. I was like, how am I looking? He was like, do you want some tan? I was like, no, I can't. Nah, it was the right thing for me to do, and I was too emotionally drained, and it wasn't right at that time. So yeah. NABA wise, going back to so what was your question about that? Was that about like timing of that, or?
So 2 seconds, Steph. Okay, we have restarted because I'm injured and need to change position all the time. So we're going to talk about NABA.
To get his Class A interior in there.
Yeah. Disclaimer: these are temporary sofas. I've just moved out. We'll have to get the studio. Sorted when I can sit on a seat for longer than 20 minutes. So
I've got the mask on now, so that's good.
We'll talk about NABA. So, and not just NABA, the universe. So, how did you get into that NABA team?
Okay, so through our prep, one of the highlights through mine and Andrew's prep in 2019 was meeting the apps. Well, actually, met him before this, but working a little bit and communicating on a weekly basis with Ian Lawrence, NABA, Mr. Uni, Gram champ. And for those of you who don't know Ian Lawrence, it was 1975 that Ian Lawrence took his there. And then he is just this. I can't describe him. So basically, he trains at a gym in Fife, in Scotland. It's little tiny gym 64. Shout out to Gym 64. And then we went where I was posing at Gym 64. We were training at Gym 64. I had pals up there. I'd go down for the weekend. I'd train there. And I met Ian and I was like, you're Ian Lawrence. And he was like, I am Ian Lawrence. And then that was just it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Ian Lawrence. And for bodybuilding fanatics like me and Andrew, this was like gold. Do you know what I mean? So for us, it was ace. We would go to Gym 64, we would train, we'd sit down with Ian, we'd talk shop for like an hour every couple of weekends. We would hear his golden era stories, and of which he has hundreds.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Oh, and he just, when he speaks, it's just like, there's no bullshit. It's just good bodybuilding chat. It's not pulling anybody apart. It's not like who's better than who. It's not federation this, federation that. It's just pure why I love training, why I love bodybuilding, the stories of the day. And it was just so good. It was so good. And it was totally helping my passion for getting back on stage, and Andrew's as well. And then he started to help us pose. So he'd take us into the studio, and then you've got Ian Lawrence like doing all the like proper like sweeping arm poses like from back in the day, and he's loving it because he's reliving it, and we're loving it because we're totally inspired. And he helped Andrew with his routine, his bits and pieces of his posing. I got to speak to him about so much in terms of, you know, just what it was like, and it kind of really brought me back to a point, well, this is why I enjoy doing what I'm doing. And then, so the NABA's coming up that year, the NABA Scotland, the NABA Universe, and Ian is following mine and Andrew's progress really carefully. Ian was even taking a look at me, maybe every every 4 weeks, 5 weeks, and was just telling me like what I was looking like, and I really trusted his opinion as well. And then he just one day said to me and Andrew, would you be interested in being on the British squad? You're both professional athletes. I've watched your work ethic, I've been helping you out, and a few of the Scottish team had dropped out that year, and there was only a pool going down, and he asked if me and Andrew wanted to be part of the Scottish team, and that's how it happened.
Yeah, and I think that's almost, I already knew that story, And what I always think about it is that is such a privileged way to make a final. I don't think you could pick a better. It's like it's almost like the equivalent of when you see professionals get invited to the Arnold Classic. It's very prestigious, and the fact that you've done it through. So once you've done it through just your work ethic of how much,
it was that, and it was just the connection that we had. Like I just loved speaking to you. Really, I really did. I saw him as, and I still do. I've just not seen him in ages, but I kind of regard him as a bit of like a grandfather of bodybuilding. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I get that from him. I've seen like the videos he does at NABA, and he just seems like a guy that you'd want to pick his brain and want to spend time with, which you guys got to.
He's so humble. He's so humble, and he's just yeah. He's a great role model for the sport. He's done competitions all over the world. He's a judge. He's invested in the sport day in, day out, and he's just a great person to be around. And I wish there was more people like him in the sport.
He's in it for the sport and the sport only.
That's it, yeah. And he just the thing I got from NABA as well when I went to NABA University, obviously when he offered this chance, we were it was like, hell yes. Like, this is too much of an amazing opportunity not to be missed. I didn't even care that this wasn't a natural show. I was like, this is the NABA universe. Like, this is something I've been reading and watching and seeing and, investing my time in researching bodybuilding for time. And for me and Andrew, we were like kids in a sweet shop, like literally, like when because it was Ian and I that were speaking about it. And then I told Andrew and asked Andrew if he wanted to do this. And you should have seen Andrew. Like, it was literally like,
no brainer.
Lit up. He was like, what? Can we do the universe? I was like, yes, we're going to go do the universe. He was just made up, like properly made up. And to see Andrew like that, because Andrew's just loves it. He loves it so much. Like, it means so much to him. So for him, it was like, yeah, let's get prepared and do this. So, and we did get a few questions about that, because like people were like, oh, how have you managed to do this and stuff? And I can't describe that whole story to somebody whilst you're backstage. Like, do you know what I mean? I can't describe that. So this was a really awesome opportunity, one I'm very, very grateful for. And honestly, that was an amazing show for me. Like, I loved it. And people can say all they want about different like feds and how they're set up and the stage length maybe wasn't this and this wasn't that or whatever, but at the end of the day, it was the NABA universe stage, and that is where bodybuilding pretty much began. So I'm like, I don't care. I'm on this stage doing something I love in a place that you can't really get much more history than that. So
it would have been good was it good for your journey in terms of what you were doing this whole prep for? It was that oh my god, was it like a I've made it moment?
It was kind of like, I know I'm not going to get anything here, but I'm just going to go up and have the best time of my life. I did not expect a placing. I didn't expect a thing. I was like, I'm going up against girls here that will be 10 times the size of me. I'm not like remotely going to do anything here other than just have a hell of a good time. So
it shows how good. It shows how good you are, because you were fourth place.
I think fourth place. I was like, what?
And it wasn't a million miles away. And the fact that you were just you're completely natural. So
yeah, and the best part of that was, of course, like you go and you get the feedback and everything else, and it was so like there's little in it. It could have gone lots of different ways, I reckon, that time. But I think to get fourth, I was over the moon. And one thing I really recognised at that show, and something I didn't think I would enjoy so much, was the backstage like element to it. I thought it would be quite, and this is no disrespect to lots of like bodybuilding and females and stuff, but I thought it might be a wee bit more catty or a wee bit more segregated or a little bit more kind of everyone's in their own zone.
Mm-hmm.
It was the complete opposite. Everyone was just like, way, like.
Shall we talk about your NABA video appearance before the show?
I'm trying to remember which one that was.
I think you guys must have been on. Yeah, it must have been when you just went in. You were like, and you were on a high because you guys are hilarious. I don't know what the hell you were on. It must have been the start of the carb up or something.
Oh my god! Like both of us were. I think Pump Media did a bit of us.
Yeah,
like,
that's what it was.
And we were both like, just like. You know, the big thing about me and Andrew, and certainly my principle to life, is you've got to have fun. You've got to have fun. And I genuinely, people take themselves far too seriously. Like for me and Andrew, doing the trip down there, doing the carb up, having the experience, walking and having all the NABA banners, and then seeing quite a lot of famous people around as well, like in our bodybuilding world.
Yeah.
Like, it was great. It was just like, yes, this is such a great, fun experience. And you know, the people backstage were awesome, and shout out to A1 Tanning as well because they were phenomenal. Like the girls in the backstage room, everyone was chatting, friendly. People were like, you know, helping each other out. There was just a nice feel to the whole. Do you know what there was? This is the word, and I was trying to explain this to Andrew about how that show made me feel, and there was an air of respect at that show that I haven't felt before, in the sense that I think it wasn't like respect, it was like a history. Like the judges had a kind of an aura, a process that they were accustomed to, that you could see had been done time and time and time again. You know, the way in which the whole thing was managed, the way they spoke to you, the backstage entrance in, just the whole thing it was like back in time, but it was like respected. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
very
it was just
professional.
Yeah, it was professional in its own way, and it was good. It was good, and I thoroughly enjoyed the day, thoroughly. And I came away from that buzzing, like off the scale buzzing. I had such a light inside from that, and I thought, that's my season closed. I'm not doing any more. Nothing can take away from how I feel right now. And that's why, like, I sort of just was like, this is great. The UK DFBA was phenomenal, extremely emotional day for me. The NABA was like no pressure, just go in and have fun. And the two together, that was perfect for me. There was no need to do any more.
Them two shows, by the sounds of it, it's really set you up for the future.
Yes. Who knows what the next step is?
So as a WNBF pro, don't you have to compete in the first 2 years of becoming pro though?
Yeah, I understand that that's the rule. So I think you have to compete, or you have to renew your membership again. So yeah, so it'll either have to be this year or next.
I don't think it's going to be this year.
Not this year. You're a bit fluffy. So definitely not this year. But next year is still to be mapped out, and I need to really think about that for my next. I've got a few things going on in my head about what might be the next steps for me, but I'm not secure in that yet. So I have to kind of like map out what I think I'm capable of.
You're gonna have to get more. You're gonna have to get more paper and pens behind you and get that sorted out.
Some more business development, yeah, some of that.
You can't show that. People will steal that. People will steal that pro prep work. They'll pause the video.
I know, right? I know. So here's me just sitting with pens, paper, mugs, just building this bad boy. That's what I'm doing. That's my priority.
So, with pro prep, I wanted to ask a question. How long has pro prep been in operation for? How long have you been coaching for?
Okay, so well, I mean, individually, I've been coaching for quite a long time. So I've been either PTing or coaching since 2013, officially. Mm-hmm. So in one way or another. But Pro Prep has been officially the company itself, I guess, if you want to call it the company, just over a year now. Yeah. So we had our year, like, woo, in February.
What was it like? What was it like taking your first client to the stage? What was that like? Was it nervous? Was it nerves, or were you excited for them, or?
Wasn't nervous. I think it was just more excitement. I remember like having quite a few different people through to the stage at the WNBF British finals and the UK DFBA, and a couple across different feds as well last year. And I remember the first one was sort of like the WNBF finals, and we had a whole team together. And it was just that for me was like, this is why I love doing what I'm doing. There was that kind of team spirit of it. My passion is you guys, is the client. When I can see that journey all coming to that final point, and then being able to make sure that confidence is instilled within them, that all that hard work that they've done, the collaboration between obviously the background work we've done and what they're doing, and seeing that final package, that's better than me getting on stage tenfold.
Yeah, right. And that's great. That's great to hear. That's kind of what you want from coaches. Is there a question that I wanted to ask as well? Was there a point where you felt like you were experienced enough to start taking people to stage? Had you gained? Was it a knowledge thing that you felt like you needed to have?
Yeah, I think the main thing that I always kind of talk about, particularly to people who are thinking about bodybuilding coaching, is you need to have a thorough understanding. I think not only the education, the evidence side of it, or the scientific base of it, or the nutrition, whatever. You need to have done it yourself. You need to have done it yourself in at least one way or another. I think for me, I would never have gone into bodybuilding coaching had I not had a really solid base of one-to-one coaching on like the gym floor level. So that's where you really understand, like when you're starting to work with certain people, where your niche is, like what you're good at. And for me, I was really good at getting people in a fat loss, like into condition. That was something I was really, really good at. And I understood I had to do a lot of thinking about, well, what's my passion when I'm coaching people? And I kept coming back to, I'm passionate about bodybuilding. I'm passionate about building a body. I'm passionate about contest prep. I'm passionate about these things. So for me, finding my niche by working with a lot of people one-to-one, and then also knowing that fits my enjoyment of coaching, that's when I knew bodybuilding coaching was for me. Because I did a lot of Gen Pop. I did a lot of, coaching one-to-one clients for fat loss, etc. And I love that, don't get me wrong. But what gives me a real buzz? Taking someone to the stage. So early on, I'd say it was probably about 3 years after I'd been mainly on gym floor, really building up that knowledge base, building a resilience, working really hard, knowing what it takes to get people into the mindset to get into that. This is not just your average fat loss or weight loss journey. This is something else. That's when kind of I knew I could do this and get people there. And it takes a lot. Like when you're coaching bodybuilders, particularly first timers, you've got to do a lot of preparation for the mind. And that's something I pride myself reasonably high on. Hopefully. Anyway, it's worked so far. We'll wait and see.
So in terms of business, you've got a great online presence about the business, and one of your passions is the posing. You love a good front double bicep.
I've just been posing before I was speaking to you, so yes, I do. I do love a front double bicep. You're correct.
So posing is something that you've seemed to find. You found that market of that's, and I think that's where it lets people down on stage. There's no point in having a great physique if you can't show it. And that's kind of what I think. And I think you can make a great physique, a fantastic physique, by posing correctly. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make. So how did the posing come about? When did you realize? When did that that light bulb moment, like I could teach this?
Yeah, sure. So it was really organic. It happened so naturally for me because I was working in a gym in Leeds at the time, a couple of years ago, and I was training my clients, and I'd say 90% of my clients at the time, or certainly 70 to 90%, were competitors coming in for shows.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was working with them in the gym doing their one-to-one sessions, I would then bolt on like a little bit of a 5-minute or 10-minute posing round at the end of some of their sessions to start to understand the isolations of what to do. And loved it, adored it. You know, this was something that was an addition to my clients. They got a lot from it. It meant that we could really target and isolate their weak areas because I could see their shape properly. Yeah. And then I started to kind of say, okay, well, let's actually do a full session on this. And one session became 2 sessions, became 3, became 4. Then I was showing what I was doing to people, and people were contacting me. And then I officially started to actually make the posing side to what I was doing into Steff Noble Pro Posing, and thinking about, well, actually, why was I not doing this before? Because this is my background is in technical movement. So I can describe to somebody who's not had any movement
mm-hmm.
or practice or understands how to mechanically move their body before, how to settle into a shape by cues and understanding where their elbows are, their arms are, everything else. And it naturally just flew out of my mouth. And some of my early clients were saying, you know, I thought I couldn't do this before I walked into this room. And now I have a set of, like, I've still got people who message me and say, like, I've still got those Steff words in my head that just like click into those particular places. And that it just made so much sense to me. So that's how it then evolved into the posing element of what I do. And I was doing that, oh my gosh, it got to the point where I had to take my actual PT down, my posing up. And then, of course, I decided to go fully online and travel around the country with the posing. And then when Andrew and I started working a lot more together, of course, he has huge string to his bow. And he really wanted to help in terms of that with his expertise from being a judge as well.
Yeah.
And we sat down and really have had a lot of in-depth discussions about what the judge sees and also what is perceived by the body on stage, mm-hmm. and how the two have to work together to bring the best out of someone. So,
and it's not a half-arsed effort. You go through the research of every single federation. You know what the different
and they're always changing.
Yeah, whether the arm's there or above the head.
I have like a whole file on my computer, literally, to the federations, the different classes, the poses, a breakdown of the routine, how it all works. And it mind boggles me, actually, because if I could say, let's strip it bare and get this, it would make it so much more coherent as an industry, as a bodybuilding arena, if you like, because people would have, I mean, this is a whole other topic of discussion about, you know, the various different federations, different classes, how everyone now has an option to fit into a class, etc., all of that kind of thing. And it's a lot to kind of take on board. And I'm constantly having to update my posing because they're constantly changing it, particularly in the, tube rows, IFBB, hand placement, everything else. So it's a constant thing, but that's what you do in your profession, isn't it? You have to just keep learning, keep adapting, keep learning, keep adapting. So
yeah, and I think it's great. It doesn't put you just to one federation. It doesn't put you to a couple federations. It literally gives people that option with whatever show they want to do. They know that they're going to get the best out of it, because you take to see a client go to a show and you've taught them how to pose, and then it turns out that they've went to another show and it's a different criteria. You take that on stage, you'd feel, especially if you had to change it last minute, because I think that's what you do. You do see that on stage, people coming on and doing the wrong style or not hitting the poses how the federation wants, and they get marked down for it. And it's a shame.
There's a lot of vocalization of that as well. Like, I've heard a lot of judges say to people when they're standing on stage, particularly in the female classes, like stand still, because they might be moving their arms a lot or whatever, because that's a different classes kind of genre. So bikini's a lot more fluid, figures a lot more rigid, a lot of these different things. Mm-hmm. And it is really important, because I think more and more now bodybuilding is becoming more popular, and with that comes all these different denominations of bodybuilding: posing, tanning, routine work, like there's all these different denominations of it that are getting more and more commercialized. So there's more posing coaches, there's more people offering tanning services, there's more people doing XYZ.
Yeah.
And all these things off it are becoming like a minefield to try and get your head around. But the more people that are going to posing coaches, the higher the standard of posing, the more people are starting to look better, the more competitive people are getting. And that's a good thing, because the posing helps really show this sport to the best it can be. We're not bodies on a stage that have done a bit of work and then we're actually showing ourselves as bodybuilders properly now when you're going to a professional coach. I'm not saying all coaches are great, but I'm saying I do hold myself highly with the posing, because that is something I am extraordinarily passionate about.
And you don't have, if more people get good at posing, you'll hear less from judges them saying he had a great physique but his posing let him down, or it was we placed him here or there, and only because we could see past the bad posing. That shouldn't be a deciding factor. And I think it's great to have it in your back pocket, being able to pose. It makes a hell of a difference. And if it's going to separate first and second, why not be on the better side of that?
The other thing about it, the posing practice, the art of posing well is so overlooked, like you said at the start, but it can be such an invigorating part of the prep. It's so fun. It's so enjoyable, because the rest of it is diligent to training, diligent to diet, and you do have to be diligent to posing, arguably more so than anything else, because you've only got a couple of minutes to showcase all of the rest of it on stage. But the prep can be monotonous, right? But when you get to go and practice your posing, maybe you're in a studio once a week with a coach, or maybe you're going once a fortnight, or maybe you're doing one and then going off with a set of technical exercises, and you've got to keep practicing. It's something you can work towards and hold yourself accountable to. And it's just like having a prep coach or having somebody else. But that element is the one element that's going to make damn sure that 100% on stage in that moment when you're finally there, you've done that tick box. There's nothing more rewarding than seeing yourself in the shots afterwards, knowing that you're standing in the correct posing.
So we're quite far into the podcast, and I like to give people that have listened to the whole thing a bit of advice from it. So what would be your main bit of posing advice that you would give to anyone that's listening, or maybe has issues with their posing, or don't think they're good at posing? I think that's the main thing that we get, is people think they just can't pose non-stop.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not a plug here at all, but I am going to say, go to somebody who knows how to pose and who has an ability to teach you properly. That is going to solve a couple of things you've just said there. The first thing, it's going to teach you what to do. But the second thing is, if you go to somebody who enjoys this, I know that a big part of my posing sessions is about confidence building, but you will naturally build self-belief and self-confidence in yourself that you can do this, because you're being helped in a way that is encouraging. You hope. You obviously don't want to go to a posing coach. They're like, that's it. You don't want that. But the person you're working with should be not just a coach for the technical movement, but should be helping you achieve your best. So should be bringing out the best in you. And a massive thing about getting on stage is having self-belief and confidence. And if you can stand in the 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 mandatory, key poses that you need to do, like a statue, thinking carefully about all the areas of your body, and then hold a really lovely, open, genuine look to yourself because you know what you're doing, you're going to love the process more than standing under the spot, the lights going, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. So my main piece of advice, go and speak to someone. Doesn't even need to be a coach. Somebody maybe you look up to on, in a bodybuilding setting that you love their posing on stage. Just reach out and say to them, hey man, or hey whoever it is, can I pick your brains on posing? What do you do? How do you do it? Or go and see somebody, meet somebody, take a session from someone. just before here, I was doing an online session with a first timer in her particular class, coming in for shows later this year, and she's never done anything before. And at the end of the call, she was like, "That was unbelievably helpful." And just that little bit of confidence is going to help you go a long way. So, then there's also looking at things. Go and research yourself. Look on YouTube. Go and try and get in your bedroom. Try it yourself too. So, yeah, lots of little things there.
Yeah, I think it's a great art to have. It's a great thing that you want to be able to do it without even thinking. You want to be able to not be thinking about that when you're on stage, and it will allow you to enjoy it so much more. And I think that's such an important thing of show day, to enjoy it. And you're working so hard for that day. Own it, as you'd probably like that. Just own it.
Just walk out, because the thing is if you're prepared, it's that cheesy kind of saying, it's that fail to prepare to fail.
I love that.
Prepare for everything you do, and the outcome will never be as bad as you think it's going to be. If you're prepared for something, even if you're a little bit self-doubting, or you have a little bit of lacking confidence, trust me, you'll get out there. I remember one guy I worked with in Leeds. I'm going to say his name, Aidan, and he'll remember this. Aidan Scanlon. Good guy, good wee bodybuilder. And we're in the studio, and he's like, he would do this if he could, he'd be like, he was just meat character, I guess, in the sense that like he didn't have any confidence. And I was like, right, we're going to get this confidence out of you. We're going to just like literally find what it is that switches that light on, and we're going to grip the floor, grit our teeth, get those feet in, and just feel that movement until you are that bodybuilder you want to see visualizing on stage. And we worked. And every time he'd come in, he'd get that bit better, and get that bit better, and he'd get that bit better. And I think we worked together for a good, it was a good couple months. No, it was a good 3 months, I think it was. And then I saw him on stage at the UK DFAC, and he was there, and he was like giving it everything. And I could see the intensity in his face, and he prepared. He knew what he was going to do. And that day he just switched on, and he was pumped, he was full, he was aggressive, but in a good way, and he was bringing all the right stuff to bodybuilding. And we had a chat afterwards, but he sent me some messages afterwards, and it changed his perception of himself and what he was able to do. And that's what good coaching should be about, whether it's imposing or whatever else. But that was something for him that was the main area of weakness, and he prepared, he got on stage, and he nailed it, and it was absolutely brilliant. And that's what everyone should be achieving to do with this.
So the take home is be prepared.
Be prepared, man. Yes, be prepared.
I mean, I've already started exfoliating for this year's season.
Oh, you've got some nice coconut oil that you can put on afterwards. Get that. Andrew will tell you the tales of skin preparation. I've watched him do it. My God, he was more on it than I was. His skin was like silk by the end of like last 2019 before he put his tan on.
I'm actually nervous to tan again, because I don't think I think my tan, I'm not blowing my own trumpet here, but my tan I think was one of the best at the UK DFBA finals.
I'm sure it was. What tan were you using?
It was with Nicola Gilbert, A1 tanning. And
she is a genius. She did my tan at NABA. She saved me. She saved my life. She saved my tan that day. Absolutely beautiful color, that tan.
I was buzzing when they said that before, because coming from up here, I couldn't actually go down to get my first coat. So she had to tell me what to do to get a tan up here. I had to travel down in it, and then I got like 2 coats there, and oh my God, I felt it feels good. I don't think you couldn't rock around like Asda up in Elgin with the tan. I think you'd get some funny looks, but yeah.
Yeah, we're like the translucent tribe up here.
Yeah, I know. So lastly, we're going to wrap things up.
Okay, cool.
Let's talk a little bit about mindset of
Yes. Okay.
I mean, this current time is hard. It's not, we're not gonna, well, I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say that I've had the most confident time during lockdown. I've suffered from an injury. I've not been able to train for the majority of it, and you're stuck at home, and you can be sometimes stuck in your own head. So what do you do to stay out of your own head in a way?
Okay, so the first thing to say is I'm with you. You know, I don't think anybody in this entire situation has had some peaks and troughs, probably more troughs at some point or another. Certainly this week in our household, it has been kind of like cabin fever. Like, I think Andrew's ready to just, I don't know.
Break into results.
Yeah, I think he's ready just to, like, I don't know, go out and just buy a space to make his own gym. But no, it's gonna have ups and downs, isn't it? I think the main thing, and something that I probably should hold myself a little bit more accountable to, and by no means have been as good as I should have been, but that is routine. If you're in some kind of routine, whether that is, and I kind of set it out, and it might sound a bit kind of stereotypical, but the time you wake up in the morning, what your morning routine looks like is that, you know, going out for a brisk walk, clearing the cobwebs, so to speak, getting some productivity going, having a cup of coffee. Then it's, well, what are you doing in the day for, is it your work or your job or your college or whatever you're doing? Do something productive for a few hours. Make yourself feel like you're accomplishing something. And then focusing on your well-being absolutely through this time. If you can train. It's been so hard, I think, for all of us to just pick ourselves up and go into the next room and train, me included. I mean, really, like, we moved into the corridor last night because it was a bit different. I actually was like, oh my God, it feels like we've got a new space altogether. It's ridiculous. But do something to keep your body moving. And then again, the same thing, bedtime, what you're doing in the evening, watch something, learn something new, read something, inspire here. That's going to help you keep cognitively functioning okay. But the whole it's okay to not be okay kind of thing is a thing as well. You know, this is a very extraordinary time, and it's not easy. So we need to just kind of keep picking each other up and helping each other out with a bit of chat, or sending something for them to watch. Like, one of my clients the other day, she was really lacking in motivation. She's not seen The Last Dance on Netflix. She's a new woman this week. She's like, I can take on the world. I've just watched The Last Dance. If you haven't watched The Last Dance, go watch it. Michael Jordan's thing.
Yeah, I'm watching it at the moment.
Oh, it's insane. It just makes you feel like you want to take on the world. Well, it certainly makes me feel like that. But the other two TV programs I've been recommending, and this is for everybody because I love them and it's keeping me motivated. I'm a massive fan of WWE wrestling. I grew up, it was in my house. I've got a couple of brothers, right? So for me, it was like a male household. So Stone Cold Steve Austin, you won't remember him. I do.
No, I do. I know him.
It doesn't make me feel so old then. But he has a TV series called I think it's Skull Crusher Challenge, or the Skull Challenge, and it's on his ranch, right, out in wherever he's from, like Texas or wherever, and it's just hench men and women basically competing against each other through this crazy obstacle course on Stone Cold Steve's ranch. And it is the best thing I've watched in a long time. So if you want a bit of like fire in your belly and just to look at like these guys doing ridiculously crazy things, go and watch that. And the third one is the Who Dares Wins SAS Challenge.
Oh yeah, I like that.
We've got one of those girls in our gym, Louise. In Results Gym, there is an SAS Challenge, like competitor called Louise. Wow. And she's badass. Like, you just speak to her for 1 minute and you're like, whoa, you're so intense.
I'm actually, awesome. I really, that's one of my favorite shows to watch. I think after that, that's something that, it's not particularly bodybuilding, but it's something that gets me fired up when that's on. So I need to watch the new series. I think they had one with celebrities on it, that I definitely need to watch.
There's some tips for you and your viewers, because if you
Mhm.
want something to spark a bit of motivation because you're just a bit like, life is crap right now, put something like that on and you'll just be like, hell yes, where's the nearest like derelict skate park in Aberdeen that looks like the Soviet Union? I'm off. I'm there. So
That's funny. I've seen that on your Instagram, and then a couple posts after it. One of my friends who lives in Aberdeen, he rides BMX, and he was at that same skate park. Actually, maybe he was kind of using it for the proper reasons, not jumping on the ramps and rails. But I think what we need to take from this conversation, wherever it went, is find something to take your mind off it. Something that's gonna be positive. Don't go and watch like I don't know. Watch don't go and like sit there and watch like loads of sad movies, because you're just gonna put yourself in a bad place. Go and find something you like. It doesn't have to be related to what you're doing. There's some great books. If you're into reading, read. If you're not into reading like myself, find some good videos. Watch The Last Dance. Watch SAS. Find bodybuilding motivation videos, and
revamp your playlists, like your podcasts, like do stuff that's going to prepare you for the gym opening. Like I've got my playlists stacked, right? I know what I'm working out to when I go back to the gym. That's such an exciting thing, because if you're anything like me, I'm a really like kinesthetic person. I like sound, I like visual. So for me, having like the tunes ready to get me fired up for when I'm back in the gym, that's a massive one. So do that. And yeah, just other stuff, like you said, like it doesn't always have to be about fitness and stuff. Like do other things, learn stuff. Go. I know more about string theory and like honestly like quantum physics than I've ever. And I've got a little bit addicted to that. That's because I also have a crazy scientist for a boyfriend. So,
oh, we're going a wee bit funny on your end there. So I
are we
apologize
back?
if it went funny on the audio, but I think we've had some good time there. I can't believe we've actually been recording for almost an hour and a half. And
that's me. Talk all the time. If you want to cut bits out, please feel free.
No, raw edit. I'm just gonna apologize now. I'm not even gonna edit like around the bits where I had to pause it to move to the floor or answer my door. This is going straight up there. We want the real deal. So,
hopefully some good stuff out of this at least. But it's been a pleasure as always, and I'm sure you'll have some fun time with Dr. Chappie when he's allowed on.
Yeah, you have to. So this is your time. Plug yourself. Plug anything you want right now. I'll give you approximately 10 seconds.
Okay, Pro Prep Coaching. Be there or be square. That was really boring, but actually, we are super passionate about what we do. Yeah, I know. It was really cringe, wasn't it? It was really bad, legit, proper champions. So no, I'm digressing. Find us on www.coaching.com. Both Andrew and I have got an incredible team and a very strong work ethic to help you guys get to where you want to be. But please do come and chat to us if you're interested. Steff Noble Figure Pro is the Instagram, and I'm trying to think what else. Posing wise, if you're interested in posing currently at the moment, because we spoke a lot about that, online posing sessions all time. So please do hit me up if you are keen for an online posing session.
Awesome. And I'll just quickly say before we go off, please subscribe and like the video. As all the YouTubers say, it takes literally a second. And even if you subscribe and don't watch the whole podcast, I don't mind. It's fine. Just go for it. Subscribe, like the video, and find me on Instagram as well, because you'll get to see. If you want to come on the podcast, follow me, send me a message, and I'll add you to my list of people that I want to get on. So please do that. Help support the channel. click the subscribe button. It's red and it's somewhere down there. And check us all out. All them links will be in the description. I don't know if, I think it might have been going a bit funny when you were speaking about all the links and that, so I will get them in the description. And I really hope you enjoyed this podcast, my first pro bodybuilder on the podcast.
That's an absolute privilege. Thank you. With the rest of your podcast coming up, but certainly excited to be number 3.
And number 3 of many, I hope. Okay guys, so we will see you on the next podcast. See you later.